I'm Vinny Politan. Fasten your seatbelts, folks. We're going back to the low country this year. Unbelievable big day inside the courthouse in South Carolina for Alec Murdaugh, making his return. First time inside a courtroom since his double murder conviction and sentencing. Actually looks like he dropped a couple pounds. Hair looks a little different. He looks very comfortable in his new life as a lifer in prison. I guess he's just happy today to have a few moments out and get reacquainted with Judge Newman. Oh, man. Wow. So what's going on? Okay, so he's got the double murder conviction. We know there's all this controversy surrounding the court clerk and whether or not she did or did not tamper with or interfere with the jury in the case. So the defense is pursuing all of that, trying to get him a new trial for the double murder conviction. But that's just part of what he's dealing with in the criminal court. He's got a whole bunch of other cases. And on the top of all of them is a case involving the way he defrauded the family of Gloria Satterfield. Let's remember who Gloria Satterfield is, or was. She was the woman who worked for the Murdaughs for years. And during the course of the trial, we learned that she was basically the hands-on person inside that house who was raising Murdaugh's children. She was there day in and day out. Someone who, spent her life helping to raise his children. She died in his house, some sort of accident, whatever it was. Alec Murdaugh set up this scheme to have himself sued, which is really his insurance company, and to get money so Gloria's children would be taken care of, right? So Alec was going to take care of her children the way Gloria had taken care of his children. Only he didn't. He ripped them off. Totally ripped him off with the help of a couple friends. Tony Satterfield testified about this at the trial, as did Alec Murdaugh. Let's go back in time to the double murder trial to listen to some of what will be the allegations and the basis of this new criminal trial against Alec Murdaugh.
How often would you talk to the defendant?
3 to 4 times a year or something, I believe. I can't recall. Every few months.
Would you talk by phone or would you talk by text or both?
Both.
And when you would talk to him, would you ask about the status of your case?
Yes.
And each time you talked to him, what did he say?
That was making progress.
When the defendant came to you around the time of your mom's funeral and said he was going to help you and file a claim on your behalf, why did you agree to that?
Because I trusted him.
Do you remember looking Tony Satterfield in the eye and lying to him?
I remember lying to Tony Satterfield, and I remember looking him in the eye on many occasions.
And lying to him?
Yeah.
Okay. Lying to his family?
I lied to his family. I don't know if I did it in person, but I know I had phone conversations with him where I lied to him.
And stole the money from that settlement. So today in court, the prosecutor, Creighton Waters, you just saw him there, was laying out some of the litany of charges against Alec Murdaugh.
Your Honor, the state grand jury indictments that I've just listed against Alec Murdaugh represent 101 total charges for an alleged loss of almost $8.8 million. Your Honor, the state is here, as we have discussed, I believe, back in April, requesting a trial date for Mr. Murdaugh. I believe that we look at some of the other co-conspirators that Fleming has pled was supposed to go to trial this week. But Mr. Murdaugh remains the state's priority, and I believe the case that is the priority would be the case involving the Satterfield, Your Honor.
And there he says the Satterfield is the priority case, but there's like a whole bunch of other cases. So it became almost like all right, which case do you want to try first, Mr. Harpootlian and Mr. Griffin? And the defense didn't want to try any of them. They were using every possible reason not to try the case. We've got another trial. I've got to visit my wife. She's an ambassador overseas. It's Thanksgiving. Judge, aren't you retiring? Well, the judge wasn't having any of it, and the judge did set a trial date for the Satterfield criminal case against Alec Murdaugh, November 27th. That's the Monday after the Thanksgiving weekend. The trial will begin. Alec Murdaugh back on trial in the Low Country inside a criminal courtroom. All right, let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. Also with us in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias, hates her more than you do, Kirk Nurmi. And in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, trial attorney, former prosecutor, it's been a while, Brian Silber is with us. All right, great to see everyone tonight. Eklund Mercy, we're getting another Murdaugh criminal case. November 27th. I mean, the defense tried every which way to not do the trial, and the judge wasn't having it. Judge Newman, who is going to retire at some point here, wasn't having any of it. Your thoughts about Alec Murdaugh back on trial after Thanksgiving?
As a legal professional, just as basically as a legal professional, to have a white cis male charged with all of these charges, and he also be an attorney, is basically like Drano to the South Carolina system. He is going to make new laws with every appeal. He is going to question everything. The prosecution has they cannot sidestep, they cannot make mistakes, because he is going to push for all of his rights. And from a legal perspective, this is wonderful legal news, but I don't know how the prosecutors are feeling about this.
Prosecutors are feeling, they're ready to try the cases. They've got them all lined up. And I mean, it's like case after case after case. It was a big multiple choice decision today, but it looks like it'll be the Satterfield case, Kirk. And it seemed like during the murder trial, he basically confessed to this one.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, Vinny. I mean, this is going to be what we call a long-form guilty plea. It's going to be a spectacle, but in the end, that's what it's going to be. And he's pleading guilty to federal charges related to different financial crimes as well. So the best argument that the defense had is, what's the hurry? But they really should be prepared for this trial anyway. And I think that's ultimately why Judge Newman didn't buy their pleas for a trial in the spring, the trip to see his ambassador wife, et cetera, because the reality is this trial is not going to change. It's not going to be less of a spectacle in the spring. The defense should be ready to go. So Judge Newman is clearly ready to move the case forward and be done with the Murdaugh saga.
Brian, I want you to take a listen to Eric Bland. He's been very involved in many of the civil cases representing the Satterfield family, and had this to say after court today.
I don't think he's going to plead guilty to those state court crimes, because then there'll be 3 convictions, because he's pleading guilty next week to the federal charge. Now he's going to plead guilty to the state charge. That's 3 convictions. It could be 3 strikes, you're out. Don't know if the state's going to count the federal court guilty plea he's going to make next week, but I would be really shocked if that trial goes forward. I would expect that Dick Harpootlian's going to break a leg, get a flat tire, get kidnapped to Bulgaria. I'm not sure that trial's going to go forward, but it is on the books. The jurors are, they're nervous. You know, they gave seven weeks of their life. They serve the public. They serve the jury system and the justice system for $15 a day. And then some lawyer gets behind a microphone and suggests that they need to lawyer up. I think they're scared, not because they've done anything wrong, but they don't want any type of notoriety. They want to go about their lives, and this just pulls them back in again, kind of like Al Pacino in Godfather 3. We are going to be speaking with SLED over the next couple days.
I was out, and they brought me back. So that's Godfather 3. So, Brian, what Eric was talking about there in the second part of that interview were the jurors that he's representing from the double murder conviction. A couple of them have come forward through affidavits saying that the court clerk influenced them, interfered, whatever. He's got jurors who seem to be saying the opposite. The double murder conviction is kind of up in the air now. You've got this new charge now that's going to go forward on the 27th. How do you think all this is going to play out?
Well, I absolutely expect all of this is going to trial. You know, this is a chess game. You know, look at the big picture here. He lost his murder trial, but that fight is not over yet. He has a number of very important appellate issues, separate and apart from this thing with the clerk. You know, remember, the big issue in that case was the admission of all the prior bad acts, all the stuff about the fraud and the stealing and the lying. You know, that was a major pivotal ruling that changed the entire course of that trial. And I remember when we covered it, I thought I disagreed with Judge Newman. Personally, I don't think I would have admitted it, and that's for a simple reason. Character evidence is inadmissible in a criminal trial. He let the state do it, but I think that's the strongest issue on appeal. Now, why will these other cases go to trial? Well, the answer is, remember, he's got to win the war, not just the battle. So assuming he wins his criminal murder conviction appeal, that means that conviction's out. He can't sink it on these other cases. He's got to try them too. The name of the game here is avoiding prison. So he's got to win all of them. And pleading guilty is just going to keep him in. He has to go to trial.
Meanwhile, we heard today that he's supposed to be pleading guilty, Eklund, in federal court to these charges. And I don't know, what is the food better in federal prison? I don't know. Yeah. Do you get more playtime? Do you get conjugal visits? Like, what is it about federal prison?
All of the above. The federal accommodations are far superior than the state accommodations. It's like night and day.
And Kirk, it seems like part of the game here that that Murdaugh is trying to maneuver here is to do his time, because I don't know. I think he may, in the back of his mind, believe, yeah, I am not getting out of prison. I'm going to die behind bars. I'll have to create this new life. But it seems like they want his first full conviction to be in federal court, because that will put him in federal prison, and he'll serve that time before he ends up back in the South Carolina state correctional system. Do you think he can pull that off?
Well, Vinny, I think you're right. If there's any end game here for Murdaugh, I think that is exactly what he's going for. Is it possible that he can pull it off? Yes. I mean, obviously, he's going to be pleading to these crimes in federal court first. But of course, we have the murder charges, and that would require his murder conviction to be reversed. And I would disagree with Brian a little bit. I mean, obviously, if the jurors was tainted, I think that will require him to get a new trial. But I don't think the common scheme and plan that surrounded these murders, you know, and the financial dealings that motivated these murders is going to be enough of an issue on appeal to overturn a conviction. But with this jury issue hanging out there, I think that is huge. And so I think his hope is, I'll go plead in federal court, and hopefully my murder conviction will get overturned and I'll get to stay in federal prison.
I don't know. I think we've got to take the court TV cameras into a state prison, into a federal prison, maybe do some taste testing of the food, lay down on the mattresses, and just see which is nice. I don't know. It's crazy. All right, everyone's staying with us the whole hour. We're staying in the Low Country too. Up next. More drama from the Low Country as we hear passionate arguments from prosecutor Creighton Waters and closing arguments regular guest Eric Bland.
Tragedy in the Hollywood Hills. Prominent therapist Dr. Amy Hardwick found fatally injured under her balcony.
Her ex-boyfriend on trial for her murder.
She had had a restraining order against him.
He strangled her, lifted her up over the balcony, and dropped her. He never intended on killing her.
Is this a case of a jilted lover turned obsessive stalker?
The Hollywood Obsession Murder Trial. Trial coverage weekday mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
say is that my answer still stands. You know, I still forgive Mr. Fleming. And as far as the sentencing goes, you know, that's left up to you, Your Honor.
Our family, of course, was affected in a tremendous way that hurt us deeply because we not only trusted the system, we thought what was family to us. And yes, Mr. Fleming did wrong and he admitted what he done. And yes, he should be punished for what he's done. But we do forgive. As a Christian family, we believe in forgiving. But it still does not take away the hurt that he caused us. Judge, thank you so much. We trust in you and your honor that you will make the right decision in your sentencing. And again, we do forgive Mr. Fleming.
Such nice, decent people. That's Gloria Satterfield's son and her sister, who are victims in all of this. Now, they weren't talking about Murdaugh particularly. They were talking about Murdaugh's co-conspirator, his lawyer buddy, Corey Fleming, who today was sentenced for his role in stealing that money from the Satterfields. Remember, this is the lawyer that Alec Murdaugh got to, hey, he'll take care of you. Don't worry, Tony, he'll take care of you. Yeah, he took care of him. So let's take a listen to Creighton Waters speaking today in court. And then Eric Bland, you've seen him on the show tons of times here on Closing Arguments. He also spoke on behalf of the Satterfields in court. And again, they're addressing Corey Fleming, another attorney from the Low Country who was working with Alec Murdaugh to rip off the Satterfields.
He's got an arrangement with Alec Murdaugh, and all the evidence in this case reflects it. It works out to be just like a fee split you see over and over again, and the reality is, the reason is because they co-litigated the case. Alec Murdaugh functioned as co-counsel with Corey Fleming, co-plaintiff's counsel in a case where Alec was the defendant. It was a shakedown, plain and simple. These boys, this family, deserve compensation.
Judge, gentlemen, my name is Eric Bland, and I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the Satterfields.
Yes, sir.
I also have the honor of speaking as a lawyer of 35 years on behalf of other lawyers. Lawyers who are overwhelmingly honest and do good by their clients. The license we have is a sacred trust. It's a trust that we have to help our clients. It's not a ticket or a license for us to take from our clients. This young man here, who's a vulnerable adult, who's in his 30s, lost his mother, Alex Murdaugh and Corey Fleming knew that his trailer was being foreclosed on, and he didn't have the money. And they're sitting on $4.3 million of their money while he's getting pushed down on the street and loses his mother's trailer. That was all she had. That was all she had. You know what he told the Georgia bar? I was a victim of Alex Murdaugh's theft. I had no idea what he was doing. I was duped just like everybody else. This whole Murdaugh, Fleming, Lafitte debacle has stained our state. And I'm going to leave with saying one thing. The hand of one is the hand of all. And Mr. Fleming is pleading guilty to every single charge.
Passionate inside the courtroom, but so true what they're saying about what they, can you imagine that? There was a settlement for $4.3 million, and this poor Tony Satterfield's being kicked out in the street, trying to live in his mom's trailer. Unreal, unreal. Now, Corey Fleming had folks speaking on his behalf, and he spoke to the court as well. Let's take a listen to the other side.
My name is Mike McCloskey. I'm privileged to practice law in this community for 57 years. I'm also privileged to call myself a trial lawyer. I've known Corey Fleming since he first started practicing law. However, I've known his family literally since the first day I moved to Beaufort, and that was March the 3rd of 1967. Corey Fleming said words I've never heard from anyone in his position. I don't deserve to be forgiven. I do not deserve to be forgiven. I've never seen a man empty himself to that extent. He was thoroughly disgusted. He admitted his behavior was a betrayal of trust that was placed in him. He admitted that he had disgraced his family. He admitted that he had dishonored his friends, his profession, his family. That's the Corey I saw a little over a month, no, a little less than a month ago. That proceeding was on the 15th of last month.
I have witnessed many times firsthand the love and devotion that Corey has for his wife, Eve, his children, his parents, his extended family, and his friends. One evening during a dark and desperate time in my life, and Corey probably doesn't even remember that he did this for me, I knocked on the front door of Corey and Eve's home. When Corey opened that door, he saw me not just as his paralegal, but a friend in need. Neither one hesitated to let me in that door and give me a shoulder to cry on.
He's the last person that I ever thought I'd be standing here talking to you about today. I've only known Corey to be a loving son, husband, father, and friend. I believe Corey to be a good man who made a bad choice.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this court. For many years, I stood in this very courtroom representing people. Many of those people had broken the law. I was very aware that one bad decision or a series of bad decisions can have life-changing and irreversible consequences. Despite knowing this firsthand, I made some terrible decisions and I broke the law. Today, I offer this court no excuses. There are no excuses. I place the blame for my actions on my shoulders, nobody else's. I never imagined standing here and being in this circumstance. I have a profound and deep disappointment in myself. It is a very difficult and constant feeling that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. To my wife, my children, and my parents. I will spend the rest of my life regretting the shame and the turmoil that I have inflicted on our family. Each of you have been a tremendous source of support to me during the past 2 years. I don't feel that I deserve it, but I promise you that I will strive every day to earn back your respect and be worthy of your love. Thank you for standing by me during this very dark time. I love you so much. Your Honor, I know that I deserve to be punished for my conduct. I take full responsibility for my actions. I can assure this court that I will live the rest of my days trying to follow the lessons I've learned, to remember what is actually important in life, time spent with my family and my friends. To know that doing things for others is how to gain fulfillment out of life. It does not come through material possessions.
He's a lawyer just like us. He got 10 years for this Satterfield debacle. There were others as well. Looks like he's going to do about 20 years in prison. Brian Silber, what's your reaction to all of this?
I really have mixed feelings, to tell you the truth. You know, I don't think he was a crying sap when he was stealing from these victims. You know, and it wasn't just taking their money. These were vulnerable people. This crime goes above and beyond. It's not just, as they say, a white-collar offense. There was a certain evil to it. But on the other hand, as a practitioner and as a lawyer, I know that the summation of a human being is not only the crime that they commit. That's a truth, and that's what a judge weighs when they're in the courtroom. And I think there is a measure of sincerity to what he's saying. But how did he get there? It took him to get caught. It took him to be in major trouble. And the final thought I have is, it really shows you the power of evil. He allowed himself to be influenced. There was another force that was corrupting of his personality, which he's responsible for. I'm not excusing his conduct, but it shows you the power of others and how they can get in someone's head and actually manipulate them and enable him to make a conscious decision to do something very wrong. So I really do have mixed feelings about it, but he's going to get what he deserves. No question.
Kirk?
Yeah, like Brian, I have some mixed feelings. Obviously, when someone commits a crime of violence against another, there's a certain derangement to it. But many times that is a momentary lapse of reason, right? But when we have a crime like this, there's a pathology behind it. There's somebody who knew better and kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it and knew exactly what they were doing and really didn't have any qualms about doing it until they got caught. And that constant pre-planning, that mal-thinking does deserve a harsh punishment because it's so constant. It's not a momentary lapse of reason. It's a consistent concealment effort. So in that regard, I think the 20 years is well deserved.
Eckler Mercy, what do you think of what happened inside that courtroom and down in the Low Country with this lawyer?
Is Low Country South Carolina?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to
It's a very particular part of South Carolina.
Okay. I'm sorry. The issue is this was his only move. He didn't have anything else but to admit and, mercy. This was his mercy shot. I tried my hardest to see if there were actual tears, but I think that this is what, those HBO films are made from. The attorney who is on top, he believes he has got it. He could do whatever he wants. He is rich. He has access to a legal progeny in South Carolina. Like legal royalty is his homeboy. He was living on top of the world and he could do whatever. And power corrupts. So like my colleague said, it does happen and we've just seen it. Like this is what it is. This is what happens when you just allow people to do whatever. He thought his money bought him no consequences. Unfortunately, he found out the hard way that there were.
And there's so many personal injury attorneys that do amazing work to get people who have been, their lives have been drastically changed and they get some way to try to go on. And in this case, 30 to 40% of whatever they're going to recover just wasn't enough. Greed. It was all greed.